started now. If people stragglers come in, they can catch up. First, thank you all for coming out on a really cold and rainy night. My name is Amy Smith, and I'm a member of the Friends of the Library here. And I'm really glad you could make it to our, what we hope is the first of many free programs that we're starting up for patrons of the library and for the community. And tonight we're starting out with a talk about healthy food, easy healthy food for the holidays. This is Elise Curley. She grew up here in Georgetown, and she just became a registered dietitian. And I happened to commute with her father, and I got to sample a lot of great recipes that Elise has been feeding her family. So I thought, this might make a really good program. So I'm going to turn it over to you now, Elise. I'll leave handouts, and we also have mailing lists too. I'll remind you about that this after. We have a mailing list for, please, if you're a member of the Friends, think about it and get on our mailing list. And Elise also has a mailing list for her.
Yes, can do. Oh, well, thank you. All right, well, welcome. Good evening. Like Amy said, I grew up here in Georgetown, so I'm really excited to be here. This is one way that I can give back to my community and teaching you something that I know about. I'm really passionate about nutrition, health, wellness, anything related to that. And I'm really inspired, and I want to help you learn some healthy eating habits and some healthy lifestyle habits, and hopefully that will help you to build a more vibrant and healthy future, and that's really what this is all about. So tonight we are starting with the holiday season, which is very fast approaching. I can't believe it's already next week. It just came right around the corner. So when we think of the holidays, or when I think of the holidays, one of the first things I think of is time, or really lack thereof. You know, everyone's all busy with shopping, errands, we have, different celebrations, different gatherings going on. And one of the things that happens that I notice a lot is that people sacrifice some of their healthier habits, maybe it's exercising or cooking healthy meals, and they kind of deviate away from that because they're spending time doing the other things that they've committed to. So what are some things that we can do to, get back into that healthy mindset, get back into that healthy lifestyle while we're still so busy with so many other things during this holiday season? And, first thing is planning ahead. And I know sometimes that's hard to do. Once you start doing it, it becomes more of a habit. So as far as cooking and healthy eating, taking, a few hours one day a week, whatever, maybe it's a Sunday that's best for you, maybe it's Saturday morning, whatever it may be, and cooking extra things that are healthy for you and your family. So maybe you make, a triple batch of soup and you can freeze some to have for the next week, or a casserole, or a really big salad that you can have for the next few days, cooking extra things. And that way, when you come home after a really busy day, you're hungry, you're not forced to grab something that's not the best choice. They're not the healthiest choice, because I know for me, I come home from work, I've been out all day, and I see, oh my gosh, there's leftover pizza in the fridge, and I'm starving. And it's so easy to grab that, but if you have a nice meal prepared, or if you pull it out of the freezer, it's simple and it's healthy. And that's really going to help us to maintain our weight and our health through the holiday season. Some other things that I think are important to think about, for me too, I think of this when, maybe after work you go holiday shopping and you don't get home till 7 at night and you're really hungry. So, always packing healthy snacks when you're out during the day, and that's part of planning ahead. So maybe it's having a box of granola bars in your car, or always have a piece of fruit in your bag, or, packing an extra bag of trail mix, or something that you can just grab that's going to keep you full, keep you satiated while you're doing your errands, so that you're not overeating when you do get to mealtime. And I think that's, really thinking and planning ahead, and, looking at your schedule and making sure that you bring things with you. And then some other things, is really taking a little bit of time for yourself to exercise, whether it be, only 20 minutes a day. I know this isn't totally nutrition related, but it is important to think about just for, health during the holiday season. Because a lot of times when I talk to people about the holidays, they say, well, it's a time to indulge, and I'm going to eat whatever I want. Yeah, I gained some weight, but then I'll just diet, when it gets to the new year. And they think that's inevitable, and it's not inevitable. We can really work on planning and making sure that we do prepare healthy meals for ourselves so that we stay healthy, we stay fit, and we stay energized throughout the holiday season. I think that's important too, because a lot of times when you're not eating a healthy diet, you feel bogged down, and you need that energy during the holiday season when you have those extra commitments, you have different gatherings and shopping and all those things to do. And then the next thing, excuse me, I need to get some water, it's a little dry. So, and also thinking about the holidays is the gatherings, the celebrations. And a lot of times when we go to those celebrations, it's laden with those rich, decadent foods that we all love, and are really tempted to eat. And that's fine. It's important to, allow ourselves to indulge in those things. And it's also fun to cook those things for our families and our friends when we have guests over, or when we're going to someone's house for, a gathering for the holidays. And so we don't overindulge when we go to these gatherings. It's important, once again, to plan ahead. I keep saying this, so a lot of it is in planning and thinking ahead. And one of the things that we can do, when we know that we're going to be going to a party, is eat lightly and kind of think ahead and maybe compensate a little bit. So maybe I'll walk an extra 20 minutes, or maybe I'll ride my bike a little bit extra, do something, or maybe I'll eat a little bit lighter of a lunch because I know I'm going to be having my grandmother's favorite cheesecake is going to be there, and I really want to have a slice of that. So thinking and planning ahead so that we're not overindulging too much during the holiday season. And also, when we prepare meals, and either we're having people at our house or we're bringing them to somebody, there's all these little ways that we can make things healthier, but it still tastes good. And I think a lot of people think, oh, well, healthy food, it's the holidays, I don't really want to make it healthy because it's not going to taste as good. And you want it to be special, of course, because it's the holiday season. And I think that's important too. Everyone has their favorite traditional dishes, and I'm not saying to change it or not to eat that. I think that's important. But there are some tricks that I'm going to talk about just on how to make it a little bit healthier and just as delicious as the original. And there is a little handout guideline here that you can take home with you just to refer to, but I'll go over it. So the first thing on this guideline that I have is using healthy fats versus unhealthy fats. So when we're cooking, for instance, oil. I feel like oil's in, pretty much everything nowadays when we're cooking, even when whether we're baking or sauteing or roasting, anything like that. Using a canola oil or an olive oil over a butter or even a vegetable oil is a lot healthier. It's a healthier fat. It's much lower in saturated fat, and that's really important for our heart health. And the taste is, basically negligible. You really can't, between that vegetable oil and that olive oil, I actually think it tastes better. So that's something that, it's not going to be different in calories, but as far as the nutrients in it, it is going to be more beneficial to use those healthy fats. And keeping in mind, too, to use, a moderate to little amount. You don't need to add a lot of extra. In baking, though, you can use applesauce instead of oil. You're going to get that same nice texture. It actually makes it a little bit sweeter, and you can't even tell the difference. I do it all the time with baking muffins, breads. I bring them to work. I bring them to friends, families, everything, and no one's ever said, oh, that tastes really dry and gross, like there's no oil in it. They don't notice the difference at all. So that's one quick way that we can reduce the calories and the fat in baked goods a lot. And there's plenty of other calories from the sugar and other things in baked goods that's one thing that we can do. And people aren't going to notice the difference. The next thing is whole grains. And I think we've all heard a lot, it's becoming more and more popular, everything's whole grain now. But when you're preparing foods, I think sometimes people think they can taste the difference, and for certain things you can, but like I said, in baking, even substituting half of the flour for that whole wheat flour will give you an extra 4 grams of fiber per serving usually, and the taste is, again, negligible. You really can't tell. The texture's the same. I did it in those muffins, and you really can't tell much of a difference. And
maybe I'll pass them around now.
yeah, that's it. You can do that. So that's one easy way. And when you're making casseroles such as rices or things like that, you can use that whole grain rice, that brown rice, which again is going to give you more fiber. It also gives you more B vitamins and other nutrients, which are really important. And whole grain pasta, different things like that. Even in stuffing, you can use whole grain bread. And when you're using so many other seasonings and spices and cooking it with things, you're not going to notice the difference, and I really don't think many other people are too. Sometimes kids can be a little bit tricky when they're used to a certain meal, but I think in time they would definitely get used to it. And then the third thing is, of course, always more fruits and vegetables, and I think there's always ways that we can add more fruits and vegetables to our cooking. In baking, you can always add dried raisins, craisins, apricots. The list is endless. You can even use fresh fruit, apples, pineapples, and then vegetables you can add to almost anything. Now even pasta you can throw in some steamed vegetables. When you're making a casserole you can throw in vegetables. There's always a way to add more. And I think especially during the holidays it's important to add in some of those vegetables because it's more fiber, more nutrients, and it's also more filling with less calories. Because I think during the holidays we're all used to eating a lot of rich foods, and so that's one way to lighten it up, So you always add in fruits and vegetables in there. And the next is using low-fat dairy when cooking and baking. And a lot of times, and I've seen too in recipes, they'll say use whole milk or use 2% milk. If you're making a soup or baking or something like that. And you can substitute it for regular milk, skim milk or low-fat milk, and get basically the same results because when you're using spices, that spice and those flavors are going to take it over, so you're not going to notice the difference. And it's a lot less saturated fat, less calories, has the same amount of vitamin D and the same amount of calcium, so you're not losing anything there. Also, thinking about dairy, a lot of times when people make dips with sour cream or baking with sour cream is very high in saturated fat. It's pretty high in sodium too, and you can use non-fat or low-fat Greek yogurt, and it still has that bitter taste that sour cream has, and that thickness too, because other yogurts are a little bit more runny. And so that's a really good thing to substitute, especially making like French onion dip or ranch dip for vegetables. And the Greek yogurt is a lot higher in protein. It has those live and active cultures, which are really good for our digestive system. In baking, when it calls for like the coffee cakes, you can use that Greek yogurt too, and it's still going to have that nice moist texture with a lot less fat and calories. Excuse me, more water. And then, let's see, well, I'm drawing a blank here on the next one. Oh, okay. And the next one is actually, I think this one is probably the hardest, and it's portion control. And I think we all hear that, and one in one ear and out the other kind of a thing. And it's especially hard when you're at a party or when you have guests over, because you can't say, oh, we can only have that much, sorry. Like, don't take seconds, But I think there's, we can control it a little bit. And, for ourselves when we're eating at home, really taking the time to look at a package and say, what is the serving? What's the serving size of this? Like, for example, the serving size of a piece of chicken is your fist. Most pieces of chicken are the size of your hand. And people say, well, it's one piece of chicken, so I'm eating one serving. But that's not really the case. So I think it's important for us to look at labels and really think about what we're eating in terms of how much. And when it comes to holiday season, you can, mini muffins, you can bake things into smaller portions, and most of the time people are going to eat less because it's a smaller amount, so they won't take as many. And I actually am thinking of one story. A friend of mine was talking about Thanksgiving, and she said, every year I bake 2 pies for Thanksgiving, and I cut each pie into 8 pieces, and we eat both pies. And she goes, but last year, I said, we don't need 2 pies. No one needs that big piece of pie after eating, mounds of food and turkey and all of those things. She goes, so I did a little experiment. She made 1 pie, cut it into 16 slices, served it to her family, said nothing, and nobody said a thing. Nobody complained that they were hungry for more. They all thoroughly enjoyed it. So I think that really, brings to mind that we can have smaller portions and still enjoy it and not be deprived, especially around the holidays when we're eating so many different things. And the next little tip is cooking with natural flavoring. The spices such as, oregano and basil and parsley and cilantro, which are readily available at your grocery store. You can buy a huge bunch for fairly cheap, and it will last you a long time. Like, I have this bunch of cilantro, and I think I put in everything. I still couldn't use it all. It's been, it lasts a long time. Also lemon, garlic, even like a little bit of white wine you can put in things. That gives it a lot of flavor. Even the olive oil has its own little flavor, putting a little bit of that. And I think it's a lot better than using the prepared marinades and sauces, which are usually higher in fat and much higher in sodium, and don't have as much of the nutritional value as spices. And spices actually do have some healthy components, antioxidants, in them, especially garlic and fresh spices. So you're not only getting that flavor, but you're getting some healthy components along with it. So it's a win-win situation. And I think it also gives it a lot more flavor than a marinade does, and I think that's just maybe it's my personal opinion, but I think with time when cooking with your own spices and making your own sauces, you'll find that too. The next little tip is watching the sodium on things, and especially when we're cooking with canned goods, which I do it too. If you're cooking something quick with beans or something, you don't have a lot of time to boil your own, you use the canned ones, and that's completely fine, but it does have a lot of sodium. Even the lower sodium versions, if you look at the back, have a lot of sodium. And most of us already have too much of that in our diet anyway, and it's very detrimental to our health. It affects all of our organs. It increases thirst. It creates bloating. It's just, too much sodium is never a good thing. So what you can do is take the can, put it in a colander, and run cold water over for about a minute. It's going to wash, most of it away. And you're not going to taste a difference because there's still salt in there. If you can't wash all of it away, you're still definitely going to taste it. But you're washing away a lot of that excess sodium that we really don't need. And I think, that's really important to do too. And also just when you're cooking in general, look at, what's in a container before you buy it. See how much sodium it is. One serving really should have less than 200 milligrams or 150 milligrams of sodium. If it has more than that, that's considered a high sodium food item, which we really should stay away from, of course, unless we're eating it really in moderation. It's not frequent. So those are some healthy cooking tips, and I just went over that pretty quickly. But again, there is a guideline here that you can take home with you and read, and it goes into a little bit more detail. There's a little bit more tips and some examples in there on how to utilize these. And so the next thing, when thinking about the holidays is money and spending a lot of it. I think we have a lot of commitments. Again, we're buying the gifts, we're doing errands, we're donating to charities, we're doing so many different things that who doesn't want to save a little bit of money around the holidays, or really any time. And so there's a couple things that we can do to still eat right, because I think a lot of people have that notion that, well, healthy food is really expensive. So, if I buy the packaged, less healthy food, I'm going to save myself money there. But that's not always the case. It's not always true. I think, when you buy produce, fresh foods at the grocery store and cook them yourself, it's always going to be cheaper than going out. Unless, if you're going to McDonald's and buying out the dollar menu every day, that's pretty cheap. But as far as, healthy foods, it's always going to be cheaper to just buy your own than going out to dinner. And that's, one short-term savings cost. Another thing that I think a lot of people might not think about is that there's a long-term savings from eating healthy, and that's the effect on your health. And the leading cause of most chronic diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, which are rampant in this country, is obesity. And, obesity can come from lack of exercise and poor diet, or a combination of both. And so over time, eating an unhealthy diet, it has wear and tear on our body. And the medical bills and the pharmaceuticals and the treatment that you need for those diseases is far more expensive than it would be to buy yourself fresh ingredients from the grocery store each week. So that's that long-term savings. And I actually read a report from the National Institute of Medicine, and it was millions of dollars that, if Americans could really grasp onto this idea that, we really need to take part in preventative health and cooking our own healthy meals, that we can save a ton of money collectively for our futures. And I think that's really important to think about. And not only the savings aspect, but that you're going to have a more vibrant future. You're going to have a better quality of life. So, you can't even put a price tag on that. That's huge. And another way that we can save money from eating healthy is eating seasonally. And a lot of people might not know what's in season, so I do have a list here of all fruits and vegetables within each season, so you can take a look at that and bring that home. Eating seasonally will save you money because when it's grown seasonally, it's grown more locally, so there's less shipping costs. And, so then on the consumer, that's less that we have to spend. And you'll usually see at the grocery store, whatever produce is cheapest within, that month, that's usually what's in season. And other benefits of eating seasonally is that it's more nutritious. The more a fruit, vegetable, whatever it may be, sits on the shelf or sits in a storage box or sits on that truck when it comes from California all the way to here, each day, each hour, it's losing nutrients. It's becoming less nutrient dense. So if you're eating, a carrot stick that's been in the refrigerator for a month, it's going to have significantly less vitamin A than that fresh carrot stick that you got from the farmer's market or, that was grown in season. It's also, it's environmentally friendly, just because it's taking less time to get here, less gasoline, and really supporting our local farmers. And also the taste. I mean, you cannot compare with a fresh picked garden tomato in the peak of the summertime. You go to the grocery store in the middle of the winter, you get a tomato and it tastes like mush. So eating seasonally, you're really gonna get that taste. And when you eat a food that tastes great, you're gonna be more satisfied. When you're more satisfied, you're less likely to look for other things to eat. Because your brain is saying, okay, yep, I got what I needed. But if it doesn't taste great, it's like, well, I'm still looking for more. And so you're usually gonna eat more. And then, let's see, what else? As far as eating seasonally, I think that's really, all the benefits of that. You have a question?
Yes, I took a sneak peek at the handout, and I liked how you talked about what foods maybe you didn't have to buy organically.
I was just going to get into that. Also, when we think about eating, buying fruits and vegetables, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I have to buy all organic because there's all these chemicals. And there are a lot of pesticides and a lot of chemical use in our produce today, which really does take away from the nutritional value of that produce. And I did include in here, there's a list, and I don't know both lists totally off the top of my head, so I can read them to you. But there is a group called the Dirty Dozen, and those are 12 produce that are usually high in pesticide and chemical concentration that we should buy organic because, if you're eating a lot of these vegetables over time, there's a buildup of toxins in our body which can be detrimental to our health. And then there's a list of the Clean 15, and those are produce that usually have a very low concentration of pesticides and chemicals. So there's really no worry about risk on our health, so we can buy those non-organic, and that actually would save us money. So really sticking to only those 12 if we do want to buy organic produce. And you can see that in the handout that I have, and that is another way to save money around the holiday seasons. And I mean, any time of year, but I think especially people are always thinking of, saving money around this time of year just because, there's so many other commitments that we do have. That's pretty much, oh, you have a question?
Well, we have an audience on the television. Perhaps you could tell them where they could find that Dirty Dozen and Clean 15.
Okay, I actually found it it was www.massachusetts.org, and they have an agriculture section within that website, and it lists the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen, and it also lists farmers markets in your area of Massachusetts, so you can support your local farmers. It also talks about eating seasonally, and it lists produce. It lists some of the produce that are seasonal. It's not as comprehensive as the list that I have here, but that's a really great website to look for. And I think, almost any website that you go on, if you typed in the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen, you're going to get that same list. Another great resource is eatright.org, and that's the American Dietetic Association website, and they're a really good resource for anything food and nutrition related. Thank you for that question.
We've been to Mexico, and we had to clean all the pottery down there. It's all wonderful food, though. And we use a little sort of an iodine, sort of like an iodine drop into the water, and we let them soak. If you did that here with some of these high pesticide, I think that would work.
I'm not sure. I'm not really familiar with that process as far as the chemical components and what the iodine does to it. I'm not sure if that's just cleaning the water, or is it? It gets rid of the bacteria, so I guess, they would probably still have some of the pesticide on there and some of the chemicals. I'm not totally sure.
Well, to follow up to Mary's question though, how about those fruit and vegetable washes you see in the grocery store? Are those worth it, or can you just use your dish?
I think you can just use dish and really hot water and kind of scrub it down, because even that's more chemicals than, it's just putting more chemicals to wash away other chemicals. So I think you can just use regular soap, hot water, and really just have a good scrub brush and scrub it off. And if you're really concerned about it, again, there's buying organic, and also like you can peel off skins, cucumbers, apples, things like that.
Comparing organic vegetables to non-organic, that's how they feed it, how the soil. Has there been any measured difference in the nutrients in the two? I've not seen that. Is it, as far as the nutrient content,
Right.
organic versus just conventional?
I've never, read anything that said there's a significant and marked difference between the two. I think that real difference is the chemical content.
What they
And the other thing too is that organic, if it's grown, in season, that's definitely going to have more nutrition content, and it's going to have more, vitamins and minerals than its counterpart that was grown out of season. If it's grown more locally and picked fresh.
Sure.
What are some of the dirty dozen?
The dirty dozen, I can read them to you. I know, if I can't rattle them off, I should be able to. Apples, which that's the time right now. Celery, strawberries, peaches, spinach, nectarines, grapes, sweet bell peppers, potatoes, blueberries, lettuce, and kale or collard greens. And so I think, one rule to, when you're at the grocery store, if you're like, oh my gosh, I can't remember if that's part of the dirty dozen. If it has a very thin membrane on the outside, it's gonna be more permeable to the chemicals. If it has a really rough flesh like cantaloupe, which you're gonna peel away anyway, or a banana, there's no reason to worry about it because you're not eating the flesh. So even if it's sprayed with pesticides, it's gonna, be disposed of before you're eating it.
But that doesn't mean you can't eat those. It means you should clean them well before you eat them. I mean,
Get
we
organic.
all
Right.
Oh, buy organic.
Right. Yeah, or just really scrub them good.
Depends on the cost.
Right, yeah, and yeah. Yes.
Is there a difference between like dried herbs and fresh herbs as far as nutritional content?
Yeah, the nutritional content, there's far less, nutrients in the dried just because they've been sitting on the shelf for so long, so it is decomposed a little bit. Not decomposed, degraded, excuse me. And the taste is remarkably different. And I think it's well worth using the fresh because you're gonna get so much more of a richer taste, and it's really gonna be more satisfying. And I think you can really attest to that when you're cooking with fresh herbs, looking at like basil, for instance. We have that fresh basil in the summertime that you put in a sauce versus the dried. The dried just really doesn't do the job. It definitely has a much richer taste, and I really think that that's worth it when you're trying to cook and eat healthy.
Isn't it true that there's more vitamins in the skin of the apple, the skin of the cucumber, and once you take that away, then you're losing important nutrients?
You're losing some of the vitamins, and you're losing, that's a lot of fiber too, which is in the skin. And that's when, for some people, I guess it's what's more important to you, is it the chemical content if you're not willing to buy organic. And if you're not, then maybe if you're not scrubbing it well enough, I would just peel it away, because you're still going to get a lot of nutrients in the apple. But yeah, there is definitely a high concentration in the peel. Yes.
What about dairy products? Organic versus raw versus heavily
That's
processed,
good.
especially ice cream.
Ice cream, oh, that's my favorite. Non-organic versus organic. The organic doesn't have, the cows have not been treated with the antibiotics and the hormones, so you're not ingesting that. And then the non-organic, the cows are treated with that. So then once, the cow treats with that and then you drink the milk, then you're ingesting that as well. And so that's really a personal choice. As far as the nutrient content, they're totally the same. Vitamin D, calcium, all calories, it's the same. It's really just that component.
And raw?
Raw, I'm not
Raw
actually
milk?
raw isn't homogenized, isn't it?
Right.
Right.
Pasteurized.
Pasteurized. I don't
Cows
know.
are very clean.
I don't know
Your
a
own
ton
cows,
about raw
huh?
milk.
risky tuberculosis.
Right, yeah, it's risky
It's
with the
a risk.
bacteria.
Now,
Even now, but less
But
than it
there's a
used
lot
to
of
be.
people that feel the risk
Yeah.
is so
Is worth,
minimal.
yeah. Yes.
Do you think that the growth hormones that are fed to a lot of the livestock and animals in this country is one of the reasons why we have a high childhood obesity rate? In other words, if they're fed growth hormones and we're ingesting them, aren't we just getting fat?
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. And an interesting thing too is, they're injected with, not only hormones but antibiotics, and that's something we're ingesting. You also have to kind of think about what's that animal eating, because whatever that animal is eating, you are ingesting. So if an animal is fed a strictly corn diet, which they're not supposed to be fed, when the animal digests that corn, it turns into saturated fat. So there is now a higher saturated fat content than there used to be in the traditional grass-fed animals. And so that can definitely be contributory to heart disease and, our obesity epidemic. I think that could be definitely a part of it. I think a huge part of it is portion control, or really lack thereof, and really just the processed and packaged foods and physical inactivity. So there's that's a multifactorial problem. There's so many things that play into it, but that's definitely one thing that's a good point. Yes.
How do you figure out how much applesauce to substitute for oil?
It's exactly the same. 3
Oh, it is?
tablespoons
Okay.
oil, 3 tablespoons applesauce. And I sometimes I put in just a little bit extra because I like the sweetness of it and the moisture. And sometimes applesauce is almost a little bit thicker than the oil is, but it is an equal conversion.
Okay.
Do you cut back on the sugar in the recipe then, or?
I usually do a little bit. That's really personal preference. But I do use unsweetened applesauce. If you're using sweetened, definitely cut back on the sugar because there's already sugar in the applesauce. So just be careful when you're looking at the label there.
did you have applesauce in those little muffins?
Yes, I do have the recipe in here. That is made with applesauce and flaxseed and milk, so there's no oil. Organic sugar, whole grain flour, and apples.
Oh, and we like muffins?
Those are delicious.
There's more after.
Those are actually, one of the things too when you think about, planning ahead in healthy cooking is breakfast is so important. I can't stress that enough. If, your body has been fasting for, whatever, maybe 7, 8 to 10 hours, however long you're sleeping. So it's really been, kind of in shutdown mode. And now you get up and you need to put the switch back on, get ready for the day, be energized. And the only way to do that is to eat breakfast, because that really switches the metabolism, gets the body going. And, I can attest to not having a ton of time in the morning, or maybe not eating the best breakfast because you're late for work and you have to do this and you're, running around. So the one thing that I do is, Sunday night or maybe Sunday morning, whatever I have time, I make a big batch of either muffins, or I have a recipe here for granola bars, something. Or, you don't have to make it. It can be, I have these granola bars prepared, or I have this yogurt. Have something ready to grab in the morning. Because, the rest of your day when you don't eat breakfast, it's like your body's playing catch up. It's going to be hungrier. It's going to be more tired. So I think that's really important, and that's, one easy breakfast. When you bake a bunch of them, they freeze really well. You take one out of the refrigerator and you're ready to go. Yep.
Our honey and maple syrup, how different are they on the body? Like, you have sugar, which is
Right.
processed.
Their sugar
Honey
is
and maple syrup.
sugar.
Are they all detrimental?
Yeah, I mean,
Someone
you use
as a
sparingly because there's really no nutritional value. It's just sugar. There's really no, vitamins and minerals and protein. There's nothing like that. And when the body takes it and processes it, it's all the same. It's glucose, it's sugar, and it's going to burn it for energy, of course. But it's not really it's not giving us any healthful components. So yeah, it is, pretty much all the same. It is, I think, for me personally, I think it is better to do the real deal with the sugar than the artificial sweeteners. They're still relatively new, and there's all these theories on what the side effects may be, but it's not really definitive. There have been a lot of studies where it actually makes you crave more because the body doesn't actually metabolize it, so there's no signal to say, okay, you're having sugar, you're full, you're satiated, you've had your sweetness, so it's continually craving more. But when you have the real sugar, whether it be honey, maple syrup, agave nectar, sugar, it signals the brain to say, okay, you've had your sweetness, like, you're satiated, your sweet tooth is satisfied, and you won't be craving anymore.
You mentioned organic sugar, is that what you use?
Typically, yeah, I do. I mean, either one is fine. I actually really, it's just that it's not bleached. And also it comes in the really convenient plastic bag that seals nicely instead of the cardboard box, so it doesn't go stale. I like that. Any other questions? Is there anything that I didn't touch on that you'd like me to talk about?
What about the mercury in fish now? What's the story on that? I mean, we got some of the finest fishing areas in the world here in New England. It seems to be mercury risk.
Right, yeah, there is definitely mercury in fish. And it's more risky for pregnant women and young children, so especially for that group, it should be eaten more sparingly, but it is still okay. The mercury levels are low enough to be eating it a few times a week because fish is an extremely healthy food. It's a great protein. And then the fatty fish have, like salmon, have the omega-3s, which are really good for our heart health. So I wouldn't shy away from eating it, but if you're in that at-risk category, young children and pregnant women definitely stay away from that because it is there.
What about farmed fish?
Farmed fish, as far as the mercury content, I'm not sure what the difference is between the two, but as far as the taste and nutrition between farmed and the fresh is definitely the better way to go.
You mean?
The wild, yes, sorry. They're both fresh.
Wild.
Yeah.
Because somebody just told me that all she's eaten was a lot of farm fish, and then somebody told her that, well, it's swimming in its own waste.
Right, and there's a lot of chemicals like with the animals, the antibiotics, which you're ingesting, but the wild caught it's not the case.
I had just seen an article this week about Atlantic fish, northern Atlantic fish, and they're saying stay away from cod, stay away from salmon, stay away from most of the fish.
The fattier fish definitely do have a higher mercury.
Cod, well, haddock. I mean,
Oh, they said haddock?
yeah, they mentioned most of the fish
Usually
that you can hear.
yeah.
Swordfish is one of the worst.
Swordfish is
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. But
I
I didn't
love
hear
the
the
food
cod.
chain. Fish that eat the smaller fish that eat the smaller fish.
Right,
that
then
eat
they
the
have a
smaller
higher
fish.
content.
The little ones is probably pretty good.
Yeah, sick of the shrimp. They're not eating too much.
Well, shrimp, I think you have shrimp that's farmed over in China.
Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be something. It's pretty difficult to eat a totally untainted diet with no chemicals, no toxins, especially nowadays, unless you have your own farm and you're completely growing your own food, which really isn't realistic for a lot of people today. Yes.
I heard that you went to Japan. How was their diet like from the American
The
diet?
diet is extremely different. They definitely have more of a whole food approach. From my experience, it's a lot less packaged food. You're eating fresh fish, fresh tofu, lots of vegetables. And the biggest thing that I noticed was the portion size. I mean, it was a remarkable difference. It was like you go to a restaurant, you're like, this is it? But it was the right amount. And the whole culture's like that. They're very in tune with eating the right amount, not overindulging. And they eat more fresh ingredients than we do. And it's definitely a healthier diet. They're getting more fiber, more omega-3s. They eat, largely rice-based, which is far better than a lot of the processed grains that we're used to eating, whether it be processed breads or cereals and, different bars and snacks that we frequently eat in this culture. And then also green tea is an extremely helpful part of that diet, and they drink a lot of that. Yes.
I have two things. The first, I'm gonna start passing out the soup, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Because people could maybe talk a little about that recipe.
Okay.
And then also, I noticed, I know actually, since the young man left, maybe it's a good time to talk about, you have special recipes for kids, right?
Yes, I do have some recipes for kids, because I know especially this time of year during the school year, they have so many different activities going on. They probably have 10 minutes to eat in between their, sports and Boy Scouts or, practice here, homework. They've got, some event, they want to go to a friend's house. There's always something going on. And they're sometimes picky eaters, and I think that's very normal for a child to be a pickier eater than, when you're an adult. So I have some recipes here that are just really quick, good dinner ideas that are still healthy, so they're not eating, frozen things all the time or packaged food. So, feel free to take those. And then the soup that is being passed out is a really, really simple soup. It takes about 20 minutes to make. And it's really good for this time of year. It's seasonal. It's pumpkin. It's a pumpkin soup with just a little bit of garlic, chili powder, red pepper, onion. So it's a good side dish, and actually as a meal, I like to eat with like a warm tortilla, or I even take a whole grain tortilla and I cut it into really, really thin strips. I put a little bit of olive oil in a pan, and I grill the strips so they get nice and crispy, and then cover the top of my soup with a little bit of cheese, and that's a good wholesome meal, so you're getting a little bit more of the protein, and in the whole grain, the tortilla chips, because just by itself, with nothing else as a meal, it wouldn't be too filling. That's just an example of, eating seasonally. And that's a really quick meal, especially around this time of year. I love doing the crock pot with the soups. You can set it in the morning, leave it for 8 hours, come home and your dinner's ready. And especially with soups, because it's colder at night, it's very comforting to have that. And soup is a great way to add tons of vegetables. And kind of sneak it in there and have like a one dish meal. You have your vegetables, you can put rice in there, or barley, you can put chicken, you can put anything in soups. Definitely a good thing for this time of year.
Yes. We were having a discussion at work today about soda, regular soda versus diet soda. And whether the dietetic soda is really more beneficial or less beneficial.
Neither.
I couldn't agree.
Yeah, I think it's like the lesser of two evils, really. I mean, because the regular soda, you have a ton of sugar, you have more excess, we call it empty calories. You're getting all these calories, but you're not feeling full from it. You're not getting any nutrition from it, and so that's not beneficial. But then you have the diet soda, which, okay, great, it doesn't have calories, but then it's all chemicals. So we're just drinking a cup of chemicals, which again has no nutrient value. So I would say neither. I really can't choose one or the other. Seltzer water. Seltzer water to get that nice fizz, no sugar, get a little bit of flavor, and you're still hydrating yourself. Another thing about soda is that it's not hydrating. And I think it's very important, especially in the wintertime, because we don't feel as hot, so we might not remember to drink as much water as we do in the summertime when we're outside and we're really hot. But it's just as important to continue to drink water throughout the day, because that really actually helps with digestion. It helps you keep you feeling full. A lot of times when you feel hungry, it might actually be thirst, because your receptor is saying it doesn't differentiate between the two. So whenever you're really hungry before a meal, chug a glass of water and then wait a couple minutes, and then you probably won't be as hungry, A, because your stomach is now full of water, but B, just because you're hydrating yourself. And a lot of times it can be that. And especially in the winter time, you need to remember that it's dry inside. And you might not think of it as much because we're not hot,
This is very good.
Oh, I tried it. Good.
Nicely spiced.
Yeah, it's very mild. You can make it, if you are really a spice lover, throw in tons of chili pepper or cracked red pepper.
Do you have that recipe there too?
Yes.
Yes, it's in there.
Yeah, it's. I do. That's a really good quick one. Good 20 minutes. You can make a big pot of it, freeze some of it.
Did you use fresh pumpkin or did you use canned?
I didn't this time. I used canned, but I usually try to use fresh when I bake or making pumpkin pies or pumpkin muffins or something like that. But it came down to a time crunch. Cooking quickly, it has 20 minutes. So.
We've been baking our pumpkin seeds.
Oh, isn't that? Yeah.
Good.
They are
Delicious.
delicious.
Mm.
I love doing that. That's a really, really great snack for this time of year. And those are actually really good too as a soup topping. You just bake them with a little bit of salt and some black pepper and put it on top of soups. it's really, really good. And it gives it that nice crunch.
Is the sea salt better to use than just regular salt?
I don't think there's really much of a difference. The one thing is that as long as it has iodine in it, like that iodine, not that we really have to worry about it in our society because we're getting so much salt in our diet, but iodine deficiency can lead to a lot of health problems. So they always have that in the salt, and I'm not sure if sea salt is supplemented with that.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. It's natural. You know, I mean, they're both. I guess it's personal preference. It's salt, yeah.
Everything has so much sodium.
Yeah, it's true. And so you really don't even.
Like a chicken broth. Just
Yeah.
in the Swansons, it was like,
Yeah.
and this is the 33% less sodium,
Yeah, even-
and it was 590 sodium. Wow.
Yeah, and your daily
1 can,
max. Yeah,
14 and a
your
half ounces.
daily allowance is about 2,000. So if you think of over 500 in 1 can, holy
Yeah.
cow!
And that's
the
33% less than the regular one, which is, I believe it's 890.
I know, it's great. That's why it really is so much more beneficial to take that extra time to cook, you know, your own soups and things like that instead of using canned. And with, you know, making your own soups, you can use water, and if you use the right spices and you can add your own salt, that's okay to cook with salt. It's still going to be far less than what's in that can, and you're going to get that great flavor. So taking that, extra couple minutes to put in your own spices is definitely beneficial.
You could dilute your soup too. I mean,
Mhm.
it
Yep.
comes from the can, you can add water.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Definitely diluting it so that you get double the amount, so you're really evening out that sodium. Although I guess if you're still eating the whole thing, it's the same amount. But if you're sharing it, that's good. Yes. That's right. Yes.
Different kinds of tea as compared to coffee, like
As far
green
as
tea,
content, or
which is better for you?
green tea has the most, health benefits to it. So I'd say that one is definitely the best for you. The black tea is great too. Those have a little bit more of the antioxidants than coffee does. Coffee isn't necessarily bad for you as long as it's in moderation. The really bad thing that comes with coffee is what people put in it. It's the cream and sugar that goes along with it. It's not the actual coffee. That's okay to have a little bit of caffeine each day. Sometimes we just need it to get ourselves going for the day. But tea definitely has more of the antioxidants than coffee if you're looking for a healthier choice for a beverage. Good question. As far as caffeine content, green tea would be the lower, and then black tea. But it does depend on what type of black teas. There's so many different types, and then coffee being the highest.
What can you say about the difference in semolina flour and whole wheat flour? I mean, at one time it was advertised that semolina is a very healthy flour. A lot of your pasta, especially those coming out of Italy, are made with semolina, which is allegedly was a healthy
Which is
flour.
the white, yeah,
It's more coarse
right.
ground wheat, and so can you
Well,
add
it
any-
says that semolina is wheat.
Yeah.
So, I'm not familiar with the different nutrient components of those. I haven't looked at them closely enough. But I think now when they advertise as semolina, but I think even though it comes from a harder grain wheat, it's been processed.
Mm-hmm.
So really, I guess the easiest way is to just look at the package and see which one has the more fiber. And that would really give you the answer as to which one is the healthier
So
one.
it's basically fiber to keep.
As far as grains, the biggest difference would be the fiber content. They're going to be pretty much the same in the vitamins and minerals because a lot of them have been enriched anyway. Once they process it and it loses all the vitamins, they just kind of throw them back in after. But the fiber content, they're not adding in that fiber because it's been lost when they shed the bran away. Yes.
Why do they ever bleach flour? I mean, I don't understand why bother? Who needs flour to be pure white versus?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's just aesthetics. They think it's going to look nicer when it's baked. And same with that white sugar. Does it want to have that browner color? And maybe that's more appealing. I'm not really sure where that came from or how long they've been bleaching it.
I think
Well,
you're right, I think
it's
it's aesthetics.
I
I
think
think
it
it was
is
like a
aesthetics.
refinement to have like
White,
red,
red,
and-
white, yeah.
Well, they not to advertise unbleached.
They do have unbleached. Oh, and it's still,
It's still-
well, even whole wheat
Yeah, right,
flour
it's not bad.
is like tan. It's not even brown, you know, I mean, you really can't tell much difference.
They have white wheat.
And they do have white, which
That's
I don't understand that. They take the whole wheat flour and bleach it anyway. That's kind of silly, but I think it does come down to aesthetics. Yeah.
I get confused with different nutrition, what people say about things, because I heard for so long, don't eat white flour, and then I heard another nutritionist say it's okay to eat enriched white flour. So I don't know who to believe a lot of it.
Right, and you know what's difficult is that food and nutrition is a science, and like any other type of science, it's continually changing as we do more research and we find out more things. So you probably are hearing all sorts of different things because we're still trying to figure out what's the best and what's in that food and why is it good for us. And I think, you know, as far as resources, the American Dietetic Association is the king of nutrition, and that is the most reliable source. And also, it can depend on the individual. Everyone has, you know, different needs, different medical needs. They might have different things. So for some people, white flour might actually be better than whole wheat flour for, you know, various medical reasons. So it's hard to generalize. You know, we can say for the general healthy person, this is what's the best, but everyone is so different and so individualized that you can't really, you know, you have to take it with a grain of salt when you listen to all those different health claims.
Well, they said the same thing about corn syrup, don't use corn syrup, and then some nutritionist came out and said it's perfectly fine to use.
Right, yeah, and then the corn industry was making commercials about using corn syrup, so.
We gotta watch out.
Yeah, you have to look to where the source is coming from. Do they have, you know, are they a part of any organization? Are they biased in any way? It's tough.
And how can you find all that out? That's, you better, it's being.
The internet is loaded with misinformation.
It is, and the internet, and that's why, you know, looking at, like I said, the eatright.org, which is owned by the American Dietetic Association. And, you know, usually anyone that is a registered dietitian has that national licensure and took that exam and is qualified and hopefully is keeping up to date with all the latest information. And, you know, we are, you know, I have to take continuing education credits and things like that, so we are kept current. Yes.
Are there any theories as to why so many people are allergic to peanuts? Because you see that
Well, they
everywhere.
do
Even in
say-
schools, like kids can't eat peanut butter.
Kids are, the allergies are coming up more and more, and there are theories that if a child is exposed to a peanut before the digestive system is mature enough, that they become allergic to those proteins. So that's one theory. Two could be, there's so many chemicals in the foods now that, you know, our digestive system can't really process all of it. And so we're evolving that way, and maybe that's why they have allergies. I'm not totally sure why there's more now than there has ever been. Maybe it's a contamination of the food source and they're allergic to that and not actually the real food source. That's a possibility. Because we think we know everything that's in a peanut, but as I said, science is always changing, so there might be something else that we don't even know exists in that peanut that we might all be allergic to, or some people might be allergic to. So, I'm not really sure, it's a good question though. Yes?
What about eggs? You know,
Eggs, what about eggs?
brown eggs, white eggs, the special expensive eggs,
Green eggs. Green eggs.
green eggs and ham.
The grade of eggs, I think, just depends. I'm not actually totally sure. I think it depends on the type of chicken it comes from. And I know the difference between, you know, organic is the feed of the chicken. You know, when it says free range or organic fed, that really depends on the lifestyle of the chicken. So are they allowed to, you know, roam in their fields? Are they kept in a cage? Are they fed an organic grain diet, or are they fed, you know, antibiotics and corn? And so, like I said before, think about what the animal is eating, because whatever that animal is eating, you are also eating. So, you know, if it's fed organic food, then, yeah, if it's eating grubs. So if it's eating organically, then you're getting that.
Well, that's another thing that they said, you can't eat the yolk, don't eat the yolk, and now they're saying the yolk is really good.
Yeah, and that's what I'm glad you brought that up, because I that is a huge misconception now, because what happened is before they looked at the egg and they said it has cholesterol in it. So if it has cholesterol in it, we eat that cholesterol, then our cholesterol is going to increase, and that's bad for our heart and our health. But now they're looking at it and they're saying, well, it has this type of cholesterol in it, but that doesn't actually contribute to our overall cholesterol when we eat it, because we have the good cholesterol in our body which can remove that. The bad part of an egg would be the saturated fat, but there's so many other good parts of an egg. It has so many great nutrients in that yolk, and the yolk is actually fairly high in protein. Percentage-wise, it's higher in protein than the egg yolk, and so I would say it is totally fine to eat the yolk if you are someone that does have cholesterol issues, not every day perhaps, but for the average healthy person, it's totally fine to eat a whole egg every day, as long as it's cooked thoroughly, you know, for sanitary reasons, but there's so many great nutrients in the yolk, and especially for kids too. I really encourage that. It's a great protein. It's very easily absorbed. It's such a quick food for them to eat, and it's usually pretty well tolerated, you know. So it's such a simple protein.
It's a good snack.
It's a hard-boiled eggs are a great snack. That's a really good point too.
What about the egg status versus the eggs?
I would say go with the eggs, or you know, if you are, like I said,
And the
if
egg
you're
status.
right, but it's a lot of chemicals.
Still a lot of chemicals.
I would say if you are very worried about the cholesterol, you can do, you know, an egg mixed with egg yolks, or just buy those pure egg whites. Then the eggs.
One egg and then two, like egg
Right.
whites and scrambled eggs. You
Right.
don't even know that.
Right, that's what, yeah, do one egg and a couple egg whites and mix it up. You're still gonna get that yellowy color from that one yolk, but the egg beaters or the egg starters do have chemicals in them. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know exactly what it is. It's like a fat replacement that's in it, or some artificial.
Well, there's less cholesterol in it.
Right, it's not totally real egg though. It has egg parts, and then I think there's something removed and it has some chemicals in it.
It's got some egg though, because you have egg allergies.
Right, yeah, it does have some egg in it, definitely. But I would just say go with the egg yolks and then, you know, like one egg with the yolk and then mix it in with the whites. Yes.
I actually have a question for an audience member.
Okay.
Kathy, your kids have been the recipients of Elise's healthy versions of like kid-friendly meals and snacks for years. And I'm just wondering what some of the big hits have been.
Cookies, the cookies.
The health, yes. I made banana bread cookies.
And the whole wheat one? I put in the spot.
I know.
I'm trying to remember.
I know.
I did make them, the muffins were,
Muffins were a
because
big hit.
I babysat a lot of different families in Georgetown. And I used to make muffins and bring them to Hood Pond for everybody. And this summer I did it too. And I said, shh, don't tell them it's good for them. You know? And so that was a big hit with the kids. Using that whole wheat flour, I used yogurt, applesauce. I put like, you know, some flax in there.
The chicken fingers, the
Chicken fingers.
are good.
Just taking some simple chicken breasts, cutting them into strips, breading them, putting a little bit of olive oil in a pan and cooking it through.
Yeah, it's more not one recipe, it's what you hide or take out that they don't even know is missing.
Yeah, and the big thing too with them, I remember, was eggs. I was
They
all
love
about
eggs.
eating good, you know, let's make an omelet in the morning. You know, that was a really good thing.
But you would tweak whatever bad things we were eating. And they never knew.
My daughter's husband was eating his bagel with cream cheese, and her son wanted some too, and he's only 2. Well, she put hummus on it and told him it was crazy.
Yeah, that's great. That's funny. I can think of, actually, I remember I was over at my cousin's house and my aunt put wheat bran. This was a very, very little child, on her yogurt and was telling her it was sprinkles. So it's kind of how you tell a kid what it is, you know, and they have no idea. They're too young to know, and then they get used to it and they like it and they'll continue. So it's funny that you mentioned that. It's true.
So basically, lie with the kid.
Yeah, exactly. So like the breakfast, like we have one child who is a pain in the neck about breakfast, and Elise, you would negotiate, and I'd be down there and she'd be making them something, like it'd be a peanut butter sandwich, and she was like, I don't care what.
If you have ham and cheese, I don't care. You're eating breakfast. It's great.
I think peanut butter is great.
Peanut butter is awesome. For breakfast? Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. peanut butter on toast with banana. I've never tried that combination, but it's my ultimate favorite. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, anytime.
And those rice, what were those rice things you made? That was from your Japan.
Oh, rice balls.
The rice balls.
Those are just fun to make because you get your hands all dirty with the Japanese rice. You get to
Sticky
roll them
rice.
up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are fun. Anything else?
Now, the Japanese have white rice. Now, we
They do. They
tend
have
to do brown rice because it's more beneficial for us.
right.
So what's the difference between their white rice and our white rice?
I think it's. I'm actually not sure. I don't know if you know this from Miko. Is it the gluten in it? The different breed of rice? I'm not sure what makes it sticky.
bleaching,
Right, it's bleached, but there's like, we have our, you know how our white rice is different from like basmati than that sticky rice? And what makes, it must be the gluten, which is a protein that makes it stick. It's a certain, no, it's not, well, yeah, rice is gluten-free. I mean, it's like,
The brand.
Is it
The brown rice I know has a.
yeah, it has a hull, but the white,
They
even
polish
their
the
white
rice.
rice is different though. It's a specific kind. It's Japanese rice.
Yeah.
And it's very different from any other white rice. And I don't know what it's a rice protein, I guess. This protein makes things stick and expand.
Is it different from Chinese?
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm. It is, yeah. Well, I just know from eating, going to China, going to Japan, and going, it is different, but I don't know exactly if it's because of the region that it's grown in, and that's what makes it. Yeah, you know how we have different types of, apples. We have gala and Fuji and this, so I'm not sure if that's what it is.
Are there any Japanese food markets where you can buy this very sticky, delicious rice?
You can buy it at Stop and Shop's in the international aisle.
Oh.
There's an international store on Mass Ave.
Okay. There is one
My
also
daughter
on
went
Newbury
to
Street.
Japan and she came back and she said, I can't eat this stuff anymore than you have here. She
Okay.
was there for 5 months.
There's also
Yeah,
one
So
in
we went
Shelms.
into the international.
Oh, that's
store.
a, or
Big
is it
Asian- big
That's
Asian
right. And there's one in Woburn.
Yes.
Not Kmart, but something like that. H Mart, I think it's
Somebody in
called.
Whole Foods referred me to the one in Woburn actually, because I was looking for a certain kind of miso.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah,
And,
but if you Google it, I'm sure.
like in Boston, right on Newbury Street, it's called Cherry Mart, and it's a little Japanese or Asian grocery store.
There's a great restaurant on Hereford, right around the corner from Newbury, that has like the traditional soup.
Oh, okay.
Miso soup,
Miso soup?
noodle soups, yeah, soup bowls, but like the dinner is a soup bowl,
Right, and it's got all these.
Yep, and the raw mung bean sprouts,
Mhm.
whatever, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Ramen. They call it
Ramen?
right?
Yeah, that's right,
Ramen. Now you're making me hungry.
So I encourage you asking these questions. If you could come up, please take some of the handouts. Also, please help yourself to more of the food. And I would also, please, if you're interested in more Future Friends of the Library programs, please get on our mailing list here. And Elise also has a mailing list, so she can, when your blog comes out.
Yep, I
soon.
am working on a lot of things, but or even if you ever, I do have a little flyer here and also a card. If you ever have any questions or anything, I encourage you to use me as a resource. I really do, kind of want to get my name out there in the community and just be a resource and really encourage people to, start making some healthy habits and, spreading it around our community. And I also do just want to thank Amy and the Friends of the Library for having me here tonight. And Amy did do a lot of the organizing and the legwork and the advertising, and I really appreciate that, so thank you.
Well, thank you for coming. It's been a great I hope you enjoyed this special free program at the Georgetown Library. If you'd like to see some of the literature that was available tonight, please stop at the front desk and ask any of the librarians. Thank you.